Marcus Webb looked out the small window of the spaceship. Red clouds swirled below them as they moved down toward the planet. He had been to many worlds before, but this one felt different. The air outside was thick and red like blood. This was Xerion Prime, home to the most dangerous hunters in space. Marcus fixed his spacesuit one more time. The suit would keep him safe from the poisonous air outside. He was a doctor who studied alien animals. For 20 years he had worked with strange creatures from distant worlds. But today was special. Today he was going to meet the Vorthak. The Vorthak were legends. Stories about them scared children across the galaxy. They were huge, fast, and deadly. Their claws could cut through metal like paper. Their teeth could bite through stone. No one had ever beaten them in a fight. They ruled their part of space with fear. But 3 days ago, something impossible happened. The Vorthak sent a message to Earth. They were asking for help. The mighty hunters who never needed anyone were begging humans to come to them. Captain Lisa Monroe walked over to Marcus. She was the leader of their small team. Her face looked worried. "Marcus, are you ready for this? The Vorthak have never asked anyone for help before. Something big is wrong." Marcus nodded. "What do we know about the problem?" Lisa looked at her notes. "Their babies are dying. The young ones won't eat any food. The Vorthak doctors can't figure out why. They tried everything they know, but nothing works." "Why did they call us?" Marcus asked. "Why humans?" They said humans are good at solving impossible problems. They heard stories about how we help other species. I think they're desperate. The ship shook as they landed on the Vorthak mothership. It was huge, bigger than any Earth city. The metal was black and covered with sharp points. Everything about it looked dangerous. Dr. Sarah Kim joined them at the door. She was an expert on how animals behave. She studied why animals do what they do. Sarah was small and quiet, but she understood animal minds better than anyone. "Remember," Lisa said to the team, "the Vorthak see kindness as weakness. Don't smile too much. Don't show fear. They respect strength." The door opened with a loud hiss. Cold air rushed in. The hallway beyond was dark and empty. Their footsteps echoed as they walked. The walls were covered with pictures of Vorthak victories, battles where they had won against other species, ships they had destroyed, planets they had conquered. They walked for 10 minutes before they saw their first Vorthak. The creature was waiting for them in a large room. Marcus tried not to show his shock. The alien was huge, 8 feet tall and covered in black scales that shined like metal. His claws were as long as Marcus's fingers. His eyes glowed yellow like fire. "I am Kethvar," the Vorthak said. His voice was deep and scary, like thunder before a storm. "I speak for the Vorthak Council. You are the humans we requested." Lisa stepped forward. She tried to look brave, but Marcus could see her hands shaking a little. "Yes, we're here to help. I'm Captain Monroe. This is Dr. Webb and Dr. Kim." Kethvar looked at them with his burning eyes. "Your species is small and weak. You have no claws, no fangs, no armor. Yet other races speak of your strange abilities. They say you can understand the minds of creatures that baffle us." "We do our best," Sarah said quietly. "Can you tell us about the problem?" The big alien's claws scraped against the metal floor. "Our young refuse all food. They have not eaten for 6 days. Our greatest scientists cannot understand why. In your human terms, they are starving themselves to death." Marcus felt confused. "Have you checked for diseases? Poison, genetic problems?" "Everything," Kethvar growled. "Their bodies are perfect. Their blood is clean. Their genes are strong, yet they will not eat. They will not even try. They just lie still and wait to die." "How many cubs are affected?" Lisa asked. 12. "All from the same brood group. All orphaned in the mining accident 7 days ago." Kethvar's voice got quieter. "They are our future, our hope. Without them, our genetic line ends." Sarah looked interested. "They're orphans? What happened to their parents?" "Cave collapse in the deep mines. Both parents died instantly. The cubs were in the nursery when it happened. They haven't been the same since." Marcus and Sarah looked at each other. They both had the same thought. "This might not be a medical problem at all. We need to see the cubs," Sarah said. "We need to watch them and understand what they're doing." Kethvar's eyes got narrow and dangerous. "No outsider has ever entered our nursery chambers. It is forbidden by ancient law. The cubs are still predators even though they are young. They could kill you easily. We understand the risk," Lisa said. "But if we can't see them, we can't help them." The big Vorthak was quiet for a long time. Marcus could hear the ship's engines humming. Somewhere in the distance, other Vorthak were moving around. their claws clicking on the metal floors. Finally, Kethvar spoke. Desperation makes even the mightiest hunters bend their rules. Follow me, but know this, humans. If you fail, if the cubs die, there will be consequences. The Vorthak do not forget debts, and we do not forgive failure. As they followed the giant alien through the dark corridors, Marcus wondered what they would find. 12 dying babies. The future of the most feared race in space. And somehow 3 humans were supposed to save them. The hallways seemed to go on forever. They passed rooms full of weapons, laboratories with strange machines, and training areas where young Vorthak learned to fight. Everything was built for creatures much bigger and stronger than humans. Tell us about Vorthak cubs, Sarah said as they walked. How do they normally behave? They are fierce from birth, Kethvar replied. They fight for food, for territory, for dominance. The strong survive. The weak do not. This is our way. Do the parents help with feeding? Parents teach hunting skills. They show cubs how to kill, how to survive. But feeding is individual. Each cub eats alone, takes what they can. Marcus frowned. That didn't sound right to him. Most social species fed together, especially the young ones. But he kept his thoughts to himself. They reached a heavy door marked with Vorthak symbols. Kethvar placed his huge hand on a scanner. The door slid open with a soft sound. Beyond this door are our dying young, he said. Remember, humans, you asked to see them. Whatever happens next is your choice. The nursery chamber was not what Marcus expected. He thought it would be dark and scary like the rest of the ship. Instead, the room was filled with soft blue light. The walls were made of some kind of crystal that glowed gently. It was actually beautiful, but the cubs inside were not beautiful. They were dying. 12 small Vorthak lay in individual chambers around the room. Each chamber was like a small bed with clear walls. The cubs were about the size of large dogs, but they looked nothing like the mighty Kethvar. Their scales were dull and gray. Their breathing was slow and weak. Some of them didn't seem to be breathing at all. Oh no, Sarah whispered. She moved closer to the nearest chamber. Inside was a small female cub with silver markings on her scales. The little creature's eyes were closed. Her tiny chest barely moved up and down. Marcus pulled out his medical scanner. It was a small device that could check for diseases and health problems. He ran it over the silver-marked cub. Numbers and charts appeared on the small screen. This is strange, he said. According to my scanner, she's perfectly healthy. No diseases, no infections, no genetic problems. Her body should be fine. Another Vorthak scientist joined them. This one was smaller than Kethvar, but still huge compared to the humans. His scales were dark green instead of black. I am Zerneth, the scientist said. I have studied these cubs every day since the problem began. Like you, I find no physical cause for their condition. Lisa walked around the room looking at each chamber. They all looked the same. Weak, tired, like they've given up hope. We have tried everything, Zerneth continued. Live prey animals, synthetic nutrients, vitamin supplements, mineral additives. We even brought food from our home world that cubs usually love. Nothing works. They won't even look at the food. Sarah knelt down next to the chamber with the silver-marked cub. The little alien opened her eyes slowly. For a moment, Sarah thought the cub was looking right at her. Then the eyes closed again. When was the last time any of them ate? Sarah asked. 6 days ago, Kethvar replied. The day after their parents died. That's too long, Marcus said. Even with their strong bodies, they can't survive much longer without food. Sarah stood up and walked to the center of the room. She turned slowly, looking at all 12 chambers. Marcus, come here. Look at this. Marcus joined her in the middle of the room. What do you see? Look at how the cubs are positioned, Sarah said. They're all facing toward the center of the room. But there's nothing here. Marcus looked around. Sarah was right. Every single cub, even the ones that seemed unconscious, had their heads turned toward the middle of the room. But the center was just empty space. That is meaningless, Zerneth said. Cubs face many directions when they rest. Not these cubs, Sarah insisted. They're all looking at the same spot, like they're waiting for something. Lisa studied the room layout. What would normally be in the center? Is something missing? Kethvar's claws clicked against the floor. Nothing should be there. This is a feeding chamber. Cubs eat in their individual spaces. There is no need for central objects. But Sarah wasn't convinced. She had studied animal behavior for years. She knew that when animals all focused on the same spot, it usually meant something important. Tell me about the parents, she said. Where did they spend time with the cubs? Parents do not spend time with cubs, Zurneth replied. They teach hunting skills in training chambers. They demonstrate killing techniques in practice areas. This room is only for feeding and rest. But surely the parents visited the cubs here sometimes. Kethvar looked uncomfortable. The parent female would come to check on their health. The parent male would inspect them for strength and proper development. Where did the parents stand when they visited? There was a long silence. Finally, Kethvar spoke. In the center of the room, they could see all cubs from that position. Sarah felt excited. She was starting to understand something important. So the cubs are used to seeing their parents in that exact spot. What difference does that make? Zurneth asked. Parents are dead. Cubs must adapt to survival without them. Marcus was beginning to see what Sarah was thinking. Maybe they can't adapt. Maybe they're waiting for their parents to come back. Impossible, Kethvar growled. Vorthak are logical creatures. Even cubs understand death. They know their parents will not return. Understanding and accepting are different things, Sarah said gently. Especially for babies. She walked over to another chamber. This one held a male cub with black markings. He was bigger than the others, probably the leader of the group. His eyes were open, but they looked sad and empty. Hello, little one, Sarah said softly to the black-marked cub. I know you miss your family. The cub's head turned slightly toward her voice. It was the first movement any of them had seen from the cubs in hours. He responded to you, Marcus said with surprise. Many young animals respond to gentle voices, Sarah explained. It reminds them of their parents. Zurneth looked annoyed. Vorthak parents do not speak gently to cubs. They give orders and commands. They teach discipline and strength. But they do speak to them, Lisa pointed out. The cubs are used to hearing adult voices. Sarah moved to another chamber. This cub was very small, probably the youngest of the group. Its scales were pale yellow instead of the usual dark colors. Sarah noticed that its breathing was even weaker than the others. This one is in bad condition, she said to Marcus. How much longer do we have? Marcus scanned the yellow cub. Maybe one more day. 2 at most. After that, even if we solve the problem, it might be too late. Kethvar's big hands closed into fists. These cubs represent the future of our strongest genetic line. Their parents were the best hunters of their generation. If they die, we lose years of careful breeding. They're not just genetics, Sarah said firmly. They're children. They're scared, lonely children who have lost their family. Children? Zurneth looked confused. They are cubs, young predators. They are born to hunt and kill. They're born to learn, Sarah corrected. And right now they're learning that the world is unsafe, that the adults who protected them are gone, that they're alone. She walked back to the center of the room and sat down on the floor. All 12 cubs turned their heads to look at her. Even the weakest ones opened their eyes. Look at that, Marcus said quietly. They're all watching her. Because I'm in the place where their parents used to stand, Sarah explained. They're programmed to look for adult figures in this spot. Kethvar stared at the cubs, then at Sarah. You think they refuse food because they miss their parents? I think they refuse food because eating is a social activity for them, even though you don't realize it, Sarah said. Think about it. In the wild, do Vorthak cubs eat alone? In the wild, families hunt together, Kethvar admitted slowly. Cubs learn by watching parents kill prey. They share the meal as a group. But here you feed them alone in separate chambers, Lisa observed. It is more efficient, Zurneth argued. Each cub gets exact nutrition. No fighting over food. No waste. It's also lonely, Sarah said. These cubs have never eaten alone before. They don't know how to eat without their family present. Marcus understood now. They're not sick. They're grieving. They associate eating with family time, and without their family they can't bring themselves to eat. That is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard, Zurneth snapped. Hunger is a biological drive. Cubs eat because they must survive. Not if the emotional trauma is stronger than the hunger, Sarah replied. It happens with many species. Animals that lose their families sometimes refuse food until they die. The room got very quiet. The only sounds were the soft humming of machines and the weak breathing of the cubs. Finally, Kethvar spoke. You are saying they are dying of sadness. I'm saying they're dying because they don't know how to live without their pack, Sarah corrected. Food isn't just nutrition for social animals. It's family time, safety, belonging. Take that away and even the hunger drive can shut down. She looked around at all the cubs watching her from their chambers. They need to remember how to trust again, how to feel safe, how to be part of a family. Their family is dead, Zerneth said coldly. Then they need a new one, Sarah replied. Sarah's words hung in the air like a challenge. Zerneth's green scales seemed to darken with anger. His claws extended slightly, making a soft scraping sound against the floor. A new family? He hissed. These are Vorthak cubs, not pets. They are born predators. They do not need emotional comfort. They need discipline and training. But Kethvar was looking at the cubs with new eyes. The big alien moved closer to the chamber holding the black-marked male. The cub's head followed his movement, golden eyes tracking the adult Vorthak's face. The young one watches me, Kethvar said quietly. He seeks adult presence. All babies seek adult presence, Sarah explained. It means safety and food and protection. Without it, they feel lost. Marcus was studying his scanner readings from all 12 cubs. Look at this, he said, showing the device to Sarah and Lisa. Their brain activity is very low in most areas, but the emotional centers are highly active. They're definitely in distress. What kind of distress? Lisa asked. The same patterns we see in human children who have lost their parents. Grief, anxiety, depression. Their bodies are shutting down because their minds can't cope with the loss. Zerneth moved to a control panel on the wall. This is impossible, observe. He pressed several buttons and machines around the room started working. Mechanical arms lowered into each chamber, offering different types of food to the cubs. Fresh meat appeared in one chamber, synthetic protein bars in another, some kind of liquid nutrition in a third. The variety was impressive. The Vorthak had clearly tried everything they could think of, but the cubs didn't even look at the food. They kept their eyes focused on the center of the room where Sarah was sitting. A few of the stronger ones made soft whimpering sounds like they were trying to communicate. You see, Zerneth said, we offer the finest nutrition available, food that adult Vorthak would fight over. The cubs ignore it completely. Because food without family isn't really food, Sarah said. It's just fuel. And these babies don't want to live on fuel alone. The yellow cub, the smallest one, made a weak crying sound. It was barely audible, but all the humans heard it. The sound was heartbreaking, like a child calling for its mother. Sarah stood up and moved toward the yellow cub's chamber. Can I get closer to them? Absolutely not, Zerneth said immediately. The chambers are sealed for safety. Cubs may be young, but their claws are still sharp. Their bite can still break bones. They're babies, Sarah protested. Scared, hungry babies. They are predators, Kethvar corrected, but his voice was gentler than before. Even our young are dangerous. Marcus was watching the cubs' reactions to Sarah's movement. Look how they're behaving. They're not showing any aggressive signs. No bared teeth, no raised claws. If anything, they seemed to be reaching toward her. It was true. Several of the cubs had moved to the sides of their chambers closest to Sarah. Their small paws were pressed against the clear walls. They looked like they wanted to get closer to her. This is unprecedented, Zerneth muttered. Cubs should be wary of unknown species. They should see humans as either prey or threat. Maybe they see us as something else, Lisa suggested. Maybe they see us as potential family. Ridiculous, Zerneth snapped. Vorthak do not form bonds with aliens. We are apex predators. We do not need other species. But Sarah was noticing something else. Look at their positioning again. They're not just facing the center anymore. They're facing me specifically. When I move, they track my movement. She walked slowly around the room. Every single cub turned to follow her with their eyes. Even the weakest ones made the effort to watch her. They're imprinting on you, Marcus realized. Like baby birds imprint on the first moving thing they see. But these cubs are 7 days old, not newborns, Zerneth objected. They're emotionally newborn, Sarah explained. The trauma of losing their parents has reset their development. They're looking for new parental figures. Kethvar was quiet for a long time, studying the cubs. Finally, he spoke. In our ancient history, before we became space travelers, Vorthak lived in large family groups. Multiple adults would help raise the young. Perhaps some instinct remains. You're saying they might accept other adults as parents? Lisa asked. I'm saying they're desperate enough to try, Sarah replied. The question is, are we brave enough to let them? The silver-marked female cub that Sarah had first noticed was now pressing both paws against her chamber wall. She was making soft sounds, almost like purring. It was the most life any of them had shown since the humans arrived. She's trying to communicate with me, Sarah said with wonder. She wants something. She wants food, Zerneth said. All cubs want food. No, Sarah said firmly. She wants connection. She wants to not be alone. Marcus ran another scan on the silver cub. Her stress levels are dropping slightly since Sarah started interacting with her. That's a good sign. But she still hasn't eaten, Zerneth pointed out. Because eating is still scary when you're alone, Sarah explained. Think about human babies. They need comfort and security before they can eat properly. These cubs are the same. She moved back to the center of the room and sat down again. All 12 cubs oriented toward her once more. This time she started talking to them in a soft, gentle voice. Hello, little ones, she said. I know you're scared. I know you miss your parents. They were good parents, weren't they? They kept you safe and warm. Several cubs made soft sounds in response. The black-marked male lifted his head higher, showing more energy than he had in days. Your parents would want you to eat, Sarah continued. They would want you to grow strong and healthy. But maybe eating alone feels too scary right now. Kethvar watched this interaction with growing amazement. They respond to her voice. They respond to her presence. This should not be possible. Why not? Lisa asked. You said yourself that Vorthak used to live in family groups. Maybe the cubs instinctively know that adults of any species can provide safety. Zerneth was becoming more agitated. Even if this theory is correct, what does it accomplish? We cannot have humans living in our nursery chambers permanently. These cubs must learn to eat independently. They will, Sarah assured him. But first they need to remember that eating is safe. That being alive is worthwhile. That they can trust the world again. She looked around at all the cubs. Right now they're stuck in grief. They can't move forward until they feel secure enough to try. The yellow cub, the weakest one, suddenly made a louder sound. It was still weak, but more insistent than before. The little creature was looking directly at Sarah. What does that sound mean? Sarah asked Kethvar. It is a contact call, he replied slowly. Cubs make that sound when they want adult attention. When they need help. She's asking for help, Sarah said softly. She knows she needs to eat, but she can't do it alone. Marcus checked his scanner again. We're running out of time. The yellow cub especially. Her body is starting to shut down. Sarah made a decision. I need to try something. It might be dangerous, but these cubs are going to die anyway if we don't do something drastic. What do you have in mind? Lisa asked, though she looked worried. I need to eat with them, Sarah said simply. Not just sit here and talk. Actually share a meal. Show them that eating can be safe and social again. Zerneth's scales turned almost black with shock. Absolutely impossible. You cannot enter the chambers. The cubs would kill you. No, they wouldn't, Sarah said with quiet confidence. They're babies who are scared and lonely. They don't want to hurt anyone. They want to be part of a family again. She looked at Kethvar. You're their leader now. You have to decide. Do we try this or do we watch them die? The big Vorthak stared at her for a long moment. Around them, 12 dying cubs waited for someone to save them. Kethvar's golden eyes burned as he stared at Sarah. The big alien's claws flexed and unflexed, making soft clicking sounds. Around them, the dying cubs watched with weak but hopeful eyes. You want to enter the chamber with 12 predator cubs, Kethvar said slowly. Cubs who have not eaten in 6 days. Cubs who might see you as prey. Cubs who might see me as family. Sarah corrected gently. Zerneth made a harsh sound of disbelief. This is madness. The cubs may be young, but they are still Vorthak. Their instincts are to hunt and kill. A human would be easy prey for them. They're babies, Sarah repeated firmly. Scared, lonely babies who need someone to show them it's safe to eat again. Marcus stepped forward. Sarah, I understand what you're trying to do, but Zerneth has a point. Even young predators can be dangerous when they're desperate. Look at them, Sarah said, gesturing to the cubs. Do they look like they want to hunt? They can barely lift their heads. They're not thinking about killing. They're thinking about dying. Lisa studied the chambers and the cubs inside them. How would we even do this safely? We can't just open all the chambers at once. We start with one, Sarah said. The silver-marked female. She's been responding to me the most. If it works with her, we can try with the others. The silver cub in question was pressed against her chamber wall. Golden eyes focused entirely on Sarah. She was making soft sounds, almost like she was trying to talk. She's calling to you, Kethvar observed. That is a bonding call. Cubs make that sound to their parents, see? Sarah said. She already thinks of me as family. She's not going to hurt me. Zerneth moved to his control panel. The chambers have emergency locks. If anything goes wrong, I can seal them instantly. Nothing will go wrong, Sarah said with more confidence than she felt. I just need to show her that eating together is safe. Marcus pulled out a small medical kit. At least let me give you some protection. This spray will numb pain if you get scratched or bitten. Sarah took the spray but hoped she wouldn't need it. She looked around the room one more time. 12 dying cubs, all watching her with desperate hope. 2 alien scientists, one supportive and one terrified. Her human teammates worried but trusting. What kind of food should I bring? She asked. Zerneth checked his supplies. We have fresh meat strips. They are the cubs' natural diet. But they have refused this food for days. I'll try it anyway, Sarah said. Sometimes it's not about the food itself. It's about who you eat it with. She took off her helmet and set it aside. The air in the chamber was safe for humans, but removing the helmet made her feel more vulnerable. She wanted the cubs to see her face clearly. Sarah, Lisa said quietly. Are you sure about this? No, Sarah admitted. But I'm sure about what happens if we don't try. They die. All of them. Kethvar moved to the silver cub's chamber. His huge hand hovered over the control panel. If I open this chamber, there is no going back. Once the cub is free, we cannot force her back inside. She won't want to go back inside, Sarah said. She wants to be with family. You are not her family. You are an alien. Family isn't about species, Sarah replied. It's about who takes care of you when you need help. Kethvar's claws touched the control panel. If you are killed, other humans will blame the Vorthak. There could be war. If I succeed, there could be peace, Sarah countered. Real peace. The kind that comes from understanding each other. She moved closer to the silver cub's chamber. The little alien pressed both paws against the clear wall, making excited sounds. Her tail wagged slightly, the first happy movement any of the cubs had shown. She knows what's about to happen, Marcus observed. Look how excited she is. Open the chamber, Sarah said firmly. Kethvar pressed the control. There was a soft hiss as the chamber unsealed. The clear wall slid upward. For the first time in 6 days, the silver cub was free. The little Vorthak didn't leap out aggressively. Instead, she stepped out slowly, cautiously. She was bigger than Sarah had expected, about the size of a large dog. But she moved like a frightened puppy. Hello, sweetheart, Sarah said softly, crouching down to make herself smaller and less threatening. The cub approached carefully. Her golden eyes never left Sarah's face. When she was close enough, she reached out with one small paw and gently touched Sarah's hand. Her claws were indeed sharp, but she was being very careful not to scratch. The touch was gentle, curious. The cub made a soft purring sound. She's investigating you, Kethvar said with amazement. Cubs investigate new family members this way. Sarah slowly reached into the food container and pulled out a strip of meat. It looked like beef jerky but smelled different, more exotic. She held it where the cub could see it. The silver cub looked at the food, then at Sarah's face, then back at the food. She was clearly hungry but still hesitant. It's okay, Sarah said gently. We can eat together. You don't have to eat alone anymore. She pretended to take a bite of the meat, making happy sounds like it tasted good. The cub watched every movement with intense attention. Then something wonderful happened. The silver cub carefully took the meat from Sarah's hand. But instead of eating it immediately, she tore it in half. She ate one piece and offered the other piece back to Sarah. She's sharing, Lisa whispered in amazement. She's actually sharing her food. Sarah accepted the offered piece and pretended to eat it. The cub purred louder and finished her half. Then she looked around for more food. She's still hungry, Marcus said. Give her more. Sarah offered another strip of meat. This time the cub ate it immediately, no longer afraid. When she finished, she cuddled against Sarah's side, making happy sounds. It worked, Zerneth said in disbelief. She's eating. She's actually eating, but Sarah wasn't done. Now we need to help the others. They're watching everything. They want to join us. Indeed, the other 11 cubs were all pressed against their chamber walls, making excited sounds. They had seen their sister eat successfully, and they wanted the same thing. We can't release them all at once, Kethvar warned. 12 cubs together might be too chaotic. One at a time, Sarah agreed. Let them join us gradually. The black-marked male was next. As soon as his chamber opened, he bounded out with more energy than any of them had seen from the cubs. He came straight to Sarah and nuzzled against her other side. Soon 3 cubs were eating together. taking turns and sharing their food. They stayed close to Sarah, treating her like their parent. When one cub finished eating, another would take its place for feeding. "This is impossible," Zerneth kept muttering. "Vorthak cubs do not behave this way. They fight for food. They compete for dominance." "These cubs do," Kethvar said thoughtfully. "They share. They take turns. They show care for each other and for the human." By the end of an hour, all 12 cubs were free and eating. They had formed a loose circle around Sarah, creating their own family group. When one cub was eating, the others waited patiently. When someone finished, they would groom each other or play gently. The yellow cub, the weakest one, ate last. Sarah hand-fed her small pieces, making sure she got enough nutrition. The little creature was so weak she could barely chew, but she kept trying. "She's going to be okay," Marcus said, checking his scanner. "Her vital signs are improving already." Sarah looked around at her new family. 12 alien babies who had accepted her as their parent. 12 predator cubs who had chosen love over fear. "They just needed to remember what family feels like," she said softly. "They needed to know they weren't alone." Kethvar watched the cubs with new understanding. "Perhaps we have forgotten something important about raising young ones. Perhaps strength is not the only thing they need." "They need love," Sarah said simply. "Every baby needs love." 3 days had passed since Sarah first sat with the cubs. The nursery chamber had been completely changed. The individual feeding chambers were now open all the time. The cubs moved freely around the room, playing together and eating when they were hungry. Sarah spent most of her time in the nursery. She slept on a soft mat in the corner while the cubs curled up around her like a living blanket. She ate her meals sitting in the center of the room while the cubs ate theirs nearby. She had become their parent in every way that mattered. The change in the cubs was amazing. The silver-marked female, who Sarah had named Luna, was now healthy and active. She followed Sarah everywhere, always staying close to her human mother. The black-marked male, who they called Shadow, had become the protector of the group. He made sure all the smaller cubs got enough food. The yellow cub, the one who had been closest to death, was now called Sunny. She was still the smallest, but she was eating well and playing with her siblings. Marcus said her vital signs were completely normal now. But the most amazing change was in the Vorthak adults. Kethvar visited the nursery every day, watching how the cubs behaved with Sarah. Zerneth had stopped complaining about the strange situation. Even he could see that the cubs were thriving. "I have been thinking about what you said," Kethvar told Sarah as they watched the cubs play together. "About family being more than just genetics." Sarah was sitting on the floor with Luna in her lap and Sunny leaning against her side. 2 other cubs were wrestling nearby while the rest explored their toys. "What have you been thinking?" "In our ancient history, Vorthak lived in tribes. Multiple families worked together to raise all the young. Perhaps we lost something important when we became more advanced." "You became more efficient," Sarah said gently. "But efficiency isn't everything when it comes to raising children." Shadow brought Sarah a toy, a complex puzzle that was designed to teach hunting skills. Instead of using it for hunting practice, Sarah showed him how to solve it step by step. Soon, several cubs were working on puzzles together, helping each other learn. "They cooperate now," Kethvar observed. "Before, cubs would fight over toys and food. These cubs share everything." "Because they feel secure," Sarah explained. "When you know your family will take care of you, you don't need to fight for everything. You can afford to be generous." Marcus and Lisa visited the nursery several times each day. They were documenting everything, recording how the cubs behaved and how quickly they had recovered. The information would help other species understand how to care for orphaned young. "The medical data is incredible," Marcus told them. "Their stress hormones have dropped to normal levels. Their immune systems are stronger. They're growing faster than expected. Love actually makes them physically healthier." Lisa was making notes about the social changes. "They've developed their own culture in just 3 days. They have play rules, sharing rules, even sleeping arrangements. Shadow always sleeps closest to the door to protect the group. Luna stays next to Sarah. The others arrange themselves by age and friendship." Zerneth had been quiet for most of the day. Finally, he approached Sarah with something in his hands. "I have been studying ancient Vorthak texts," he said. "I found something interesting." He showed her a holographic display of old Vorthak writing. "This is from our homeworld thousands of years ago. It describes how cubs were raised in the old times." Sarah studied the alien symbols. "What does it say?" It says that cubs need 3 things to grow strong: food for the body, training for the mind, and bonding for the spirit. We have focused only on the first 2. We forgot about the third. Bonding for the spirit, Sarah repeated. That's beautiful. It also says that cubs without proper bonding grow up to be weak hunters even if they are physically strong. They lack the confidence to take risks. They don't trust their own judgment. Kethvar looked thoughtful. That explains much about our recent generations. Our young warriors are technically skilled but emotionally uncertain. They follow orders but cannot think independently. Because they never learned to trust relationships, Sarah realized. They never felt truly secure as children. As if to demonstrate her point, Sunny climbed into Sarah's lap and began purring contentedly. The little yellow cub had gone from near death to complete happiness in just 3 days. What will happen when you leave? Kethvar asked quietly. The cubs are bonded to you. How can we maintain this progress without human presence? Sarah had been thinking about this problem. You can learn to do what I do. It's not magic. It's just patience and love and understanding. But we are not humans. We do not have your emotional instincts. You have your own emotional instincts, Sarah corrected. You just haven't been using them. Watch how you feel when you see the cubs playing happily. Watch how you feel when they come to you for comfort. That afternoon, Sarah began teaching Kethvar and Zurneth how to interact with the cubs the way she did. She showed them how to sit calmly and let the cubs approach, how to speak gently instead of giving commands, how to play instead of just training. At first, the 2 Vorthak adults were awkward and uncertain. Their voices were too loud, their movements too sharp. But the cubs were patient with them, sensing that these adults were trying to learn. Shadow was the first to accept Kethvar as a potential parent figure. The young male brought him a toy and waited to see what would happen. Kethvar looked confused for a moment, then carefully took the toy and examined it with interest. He wants to play with you, Sarah explained. Show him how the toy works, but let him figure some of it out himself. Slowly, carefully, Kethvar began to play with Shadow. The big alien's claws were gentle as he helped the cubs solve the puzzle. When Shadow succeeded, Kethvar made a sound of approval that was much softer than his usual commanding voice. I feel proud, Kethvar said with surprise. Proud of his achievement, even though it is a simple toy. That's the bonding instinct, Sarah said with a smile. You're learning to be a parent. Zurneth was having success with the smaller cubs. His scientific mind appreciated their curiosity and intelligence. When they asked questions about their toys or their food, he explained everything patiently instead of just giving orders. They want to understand how things work, he observed. Not just what to do, but why to do it. Smart children always ask why, Sarah agreed. And smart parents take time to answer. By the evening of the 4th day, both Vorthak adults were successfully feeding and playing with the cubs. The young ones still preferred Sarah, but they accepted their own species as family members too. We have learned much from you, Kethvar told Sarah as they prepared for sleep. Not just about cubs, but about ourselves. We had forgotten how to be gentle. You didn't forget, Sarah said. You just got out of practice. Now you're remembering. She looked around the nursery at the 12 healthy, happy cubs. Luna was curled up next to her, purring softly. Shadow was grooming one of his smaller siblings. Sunny was playing with a toy near Zurneth's feet. The scene was peaceful and loving. Tomorrow I want to try an experiment, Sarah announced. I want to leave the nursery for a few hours and see how the cubs do with just Kethvar and Zurneth. But what if they stop eating again? Zurneth worried. They won't, Sarah said confidently. They've learned that eating is safe. They've learned that adults can be trusted. They've learned that they're part of a family that will take care of them. She stroked Luna's silver scales gently. These cubs will grow up to be different from other Vorthak. They'll be strong fighters, but they'll also be loving parents. They'll remember what it feels like to be cared for, and they'll pass that feeling on to their own children. And the Vorthak species will become stronger because of it, Kethvar realized. Not just physically stronger, but emotionally stronger. The strongest creatures in the universe, Sarah said softly, are the ones who know how to love. As the nursery lights dimmed for the night, 12 healthy cubs settled down to sleep surrounded by adults who loved them. The crisis was over, but the real victory was just beginning. The Vorthak had learned something new about strength, something that would change their entire civilization. And somewhere in the quiet darkness, a small yellow cub named Sunny dreamed of the strange, gentle human who had taught her people how to love.